The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, welcome back to Property Method, and today this is a live training of Module 7. And thanks for logging today. And we have here Dr. Ong from Singapore, and just we got a newcomer here, Alex. Hi, Alex. And let's get started, Dr. Ong.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. Okay, today we come to the most important module of the entire course, how to evaluate an investment property. This module is going to be very exciting because you will learn a trademark analytical method uniquely created for property investment analysis, and is only exclusively available for subscribed member of Property Method. So what is in this module for today? We will first show you how to estimate the value of a property, followed by a step-by-step financial analysis, which allows us to analyze how good is an investment property. Please follow the steps outlined here to make a complete analysis for any of your investment, and do not rely on any shortcuts. Once completed, this analysis tells us what we need to know in order to make the best decisions for our investment. Learn and use the formula. This will absolutely ensure us to make a sound investment decision, such as whether it is worth it for us to buy or to finance a property, or how much we should offer to seller, how much we should borrow from bank, etc. etc. We will later demonstrate with some examples. As we go through the analysis, do not be so particular about the numbers like rental rates or operating expenses that we're going to discuss later. Property information such as income and expenses vary from different area to area, but basic formulas used to analyze a property are universal. At the time when we analyze the real property that interests us, we will learn the actual rental rates and average operating expenses and other numbers that are common in the particular area or particular property. So let's start with the basic idea of what defines the value of a real estate property. To estimate the value of a property is actually not as difficult as we think. With some information from the market, we can do the estimation just like a real estate valuer. Always remember that the value of a property depends on the potential income it can generate, which is the annual rental income most of the time. This has been one of the guidelines for banks and valuers to perform property valuation, and also for government to derive property taxes as well, which includes like quick rent and assessment fee, or with so-called cukai harta and cukai tanah. They are using the same so-called definition when it comes to property valuation. The first information we need from the market and we need to learn in order to estimate the value of a property is a capitalization rate. A simple term used to estimate value of a property these days is I think quite common that everybody knows is a rental yield. However, we call it capitalization rate instead of a rental yield when we talk about valuation. But the formula is very similar. That is capitalization rate equals to property annual income divided by property value. For example, if an apartment with monthly rental income of let's say 1,000 ringgit every month, this apartment is generating a 12,000 annual income, and if its current market value is 120,000 ringgit, then we can say that its capitalization rate is 10%. So we just use 12,000 divided by 120,000, you will get the 10% of capitalization rate, this example. The meaning of this 10% capitalization rate is that this property is able to generate a 10% annual income based on the total capital that it can generate. And the total capital it can generate right now is the 120,000 ringgit. Because if we sell this property away now, we can get that amount of capital from the market. So that is the meaning of capital, why we use capitalization rate to define that. And to determine a property's fair value, we simply change a bit of this same equation into this form. So the expected property value that we want to know will now become the expected property annual income divided by the capitalization rate. In this capitalization rate in this the second formula is the capitalization rate of the same kind of property in the same area of the market. So we just swap the places of capitalization rate and the property value in the previous equation. Now the property value is property annual income divided by the capitalization rate in the new form in the second formula. So let us use an example to demonstrate how we use this equation to estimate the value of a property. Okay, in this example, we will use a low-end apartment in Johor Bahru to demonstrate. Let's say we found this apartment in JB and it's able to rent for 1,000 ringgit every month. And in JB, normally the capitalization rate for low-end rental apartment is around 6 to 6.7%. This means that an investor purchasing an apartment there is expected to earn 6 to 6.7% every year from their property. Here, before we start the calculation, we may want to ask, how do we get this capitalization rate? Well, we can't get an accurate capitalization rate without a record of transacted prices for a particular type of property in a particular area. So far, only the authority has this record by Land Office, and only the professionals like valuers, they are allowed to access to these records. But still, we can get an estimation of capitalization rate from open market information. We can use information like monthly rent and the selling price in the property listings to estimate the capitalization rate in an area. We just look for listings of similar properties in the same area and then use the average rental income as an estimated property annual income and average property price as an so-called to do the calculation to estimate and as an estimate of the property value. So with these two numbers, the so-called the average rental income and the so-called the average property price, we just use back the same equation of the capitalization rate in the previous slide to estimate an average capitalization rate. So this is how we get a so-called estimation capitalization rate from the market information from market. Because the information that we gather is from open market, sometimes we need to filter out those unrealistic numbers like those overpriced rental in order to make our estimation as accurate as possible. So once we have this capitalization rate calculated from the market information, we can use it to evaluate a fair value of all similar properties in the same area using this formula. So if the apartment is in this example can rent for 1,000 ringgit every month in the market, its expected annual income based on this formula that we can calculate will be 12,000, which is 1,000 every month times 12 months. Then from the equation, the property value should not be more than 200,000, which is we divide the 12,000 ringgit by 0.06, which will take the lower number of capitalization rate, 6%. Then from this, we can estimate this property is worth the value in the current market about 200,000 ringgit. So this gives us a guideline that based on the potential income this apartment can generate, if we want to buy it, we can offer up to 200,000 to the seller. One thing to take note here is capitalization rate depends on the type and locations of the property. Other than property listings, actually the best alternative for us to easily estimate this capitalization rate perhaps is by asking the latest average rental income and selling price in the same area from our very own property agents, because they are the professional among so-called, they are the professionals in the market, so they should know, they should roughly have an idea that what is the average rental income and what is the average selling price for that kind of property in the market now. And valuers also and government get this kind of data, get the data of rental and property prices. Actually, they get all this data from stamp duty records, such as tenancy agreements, sale and purchase transactions of Inland Revenue Board or HASL and Land Office. But we have no access to this data. But no worry, most of the time we find ourselves having a more accurate estimation of property value. Why? Because our estimation is actually based on the most current market information that we gather either from property listings or from our property agents. So far, this is the first method. We call it capitalization rate to estimate the value of a property.
Okay,
Now
Dr.
let's
Ong,
look at,
there's a question from Alex.
okay,
Yeah, he's asking, for those new landed property, like just it is like under development, still not yet
okay.
built. Will this capitalization rate apply to this kind of property as well?
Yes, apply. You can double check with those so-called new launch project with those the owner just got a key and they just about to rent for the first 1 or 2 years after they got a key. They get this rental income or the rental from the market, all this number, and also based on their previous 1 or 2 years selling price, you could still be able to estimate the capitalization rate for those new projects. Because unless the market have a sudden change in terms of either pricing or the rental, so-called the monthly rental, otherwise the estimation will still be so-called quite accurate, because it's not like stock market, it will change every day or even every moment. For property price and the property rental rate, normally it will take a while for them to change a few percent. So based on the previous new launch project, you are still able to get the information and do the estimation.
Okay.
Did
So
I answer
since
the
the
question by
recent
Alex?
market, I think since the recent market property value had climbed up a lot for the
Yeah.
past few years, so can we assume that the capitalization rate had dropped significantly over these years?
Yes. So that's why we have to so-called update ourselves from the current market information. Once we are able to so-called to see the property listing, the latest property listing or the latest rental, the asking rent from the owner, then we just double check with your agent. Is it true that you have ever tenanted any unit with that kind of monthly rent, or is it really you have ever sold any transaction coming across recently that at that kind of range of price? Once you are okay with the so-called the information from agents that really happen, those numbers, then you will be able to revise the capitalization rate to the so-called the latest one. Either it is already went up from a previous year or whatever, or go down.
Okay, good.
So the most important thing is to keep in touch with the latest market information, but verify it with the agents. Because sometimes we know that the advertisement on paper or on the property listing on website, some may be asking exceptionally high, and for some exceptional case, those are like distressed property, they may be just want to let it go fast. Their price will not reflect the current market situation. They may just want to sell you fast and prices lower than market value. So always double check back with those professionals. Okay,
Okay, good.
so
Thank you.
let's move on to the next method to evaluate the property value. Net operating income multiplier. Okay, this method normally adopted by banks and those other commercial mortgage lenders. They generally use the net operating income or so-called NOI multiplier to establish property value for loan purposes. They are looking at the investment prior to the effect of financing. This method is quite similar to capitalization rate. The only difference is that banks are more particular of the actual or net income a property can generate. Instead of just taking rental income into consideration, they also include other operating expenses and allowances in their calculation. Therefore, the net operating income is the income produced by a property after all operating expenses and allowances for vacancies have been deducted, but before the mortgage payments or monthly installment. So when an investor says, I will not pay more than 10 times the net operating income for a property that has an NOI of 20,000 ringgit. So this investor is actually saying that the maximum price he will pay for the property is up to 200,000 ringgit. So this will get the same value in the previous example using the previous method. So we can get a more accurate estimation if we are able to get a more accurate information like the expenses, allowances for vacancies, expenses, operating expenses like maintenance and whatever, all factor in. Then we are able to get the net operating income instead of just the rental as an annual income for the property. The accuracy of this formula lies in the fact that all the variables in the operation have been eliminated, namely rental income, vacancies, and other operating expenses. The NOI is therefore capitalized at a certain percentage, say 10%, to establish a value for loan purposes. For example, a property producing a net operating income of 20,000 a year, capitalized at when it's capitalized at 10%. So that means that we hope that will only occupy the annual income will only as 10% of the capital. It will has a fair market value of 200,000 ringgit. And bank will probably lend just a percentage of that amount. For example, 70% of or equivalent to 140,000 ringgit. So we can now see why an understanding of net operating income is important to us. The amount of money that bank loan to us practically is based on the net operating income multiplier of the property, or NOI. And we can see that the multiplier that the bank uses here is actually derived from the capitalization rate that we discussed in the previous method. In other words, banks still have to rely on the current market information to justify the multiplier they use in the valuation process of a property. And the only variable that can change the accuracy of this formula is the financing. Because as we know, financing can completely change the bottom line income. What looks like a good investment based on the net operating income can turn out to be a poor one if the monthly installment or the mortgage repayments are excessively high. Ultimately, we will learn that creative financing can improve the financial outlook of an investment, and we will discuss more about this creative financing in the next module. So now let's have a recap of whatever we learned so far. Whether we are a buyer or a seller, we can estimate the value of an investment property based on the capitalization rate and also the net operating income multiplier. Valuers and banks also estimate the value of a property and loan amount partly based on this two formula. So far, if a property that we like has met all of the qualifications that we have been discussed in the previous modules, and we have used the simple formula of capitalization rate and or the NOI, net operating income multiplier, to estimate the fair value of the property. Now here come the real test. How does the investment stack up financially? Or in other words, how will the investment perform when it involves a mortgage loan? Because in both the method that we discussed to estimate the value, both exclude the effect of mortgage loan. So this leads us to a more detailed and quantitative analysis that we are going to discuss in this module. And I have to emphasize again, if the rest of the modules in this course doesn't interest you, or you learn nothing at all from the rest of the module, better retain the information of this module, because like I emphasized earlier, this analysis that we're going to discuss is the most important content throughout
Dr.
the
Ong,
entire course.
maybe let me give me a few minutes to summarize this thing. So we are talking about, when you value a property, you're using capitalization rate and also the net operating income multiplier, which is both these are taking into account the income that property is going to generate.
Yes.
So if let's say,
potential.
if you compare to like FD, so if you have money in FD, you have 1 million in FD, and FD is giving you 3% return. And when you look at the capitalization rate, you can use that 1 million to buy a property, but the capitalization rate, let's say, is 5%, so it's giving higher return than the FD
2%
you have.
extra.
Yeah, so you can
Yes.
definitely go and buy the property. It's better than putting the money in FD, right? So
Yes.
in another word, then now we come to the next step. When you're talking about FD, you cannot borrow money and put in FD, because nobody is going to
Yes.
borrow your money and put in FD, right?
Yes, that's
But-
a very good example.
Yeah, but when you buy property, bank, they are willing to borrow you money to buy. So
To buy, yes.
so then the computation become more complicated. So how do you compare this thing? So this is what we come to
Yes.
the next step, which we are going to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
Especially when we want to enjoy the benefit of the power of leverage, which is quite exclusive to real estate investment. So that's why this analytical tool is this method that we're going to discuss is very important. I will try to go slow as slow as possible. If any question, you can just voice up, or later you can just give a comment on the module page.
Okay.
Okay, for financial analysis of our property, assuming now we will just use one example, okay, then we will follow through the entire analysis using this example. So assume that we meet with Mr. Seller. We just call him Mr. Seller, owner of, for example, an apartment that we want to invest. The price he wants is 150,000 according to Mr. Seller. His apartment is currently tenanted for 1,001 every month. Okay. At this point, without any analysis, we do not know if he is overpricing his property or he is pricing it too low. Okay, we can't know neither one. Some reason he may be overpricing the properties are like because the unit, the F floor apartment unit in the same building sold last year for a higher price, maybe 160,000, and it's due to the inflation, his apartment has appreciated far more than the price he's asking, or his rent is the lowest on the street, and next year when we own the apartment, we will be able to increase our income by at least maybe 10% or whatever, or Mr. Seller can produce paid bills showing that he has spent over maybe 15,000 in the renovation last year. So that's why he may be, based on all these reasons, overpriced the property to us. But on the other hand, he may price it too low. because he purchased that apartment maybe 8 years ago for 80,000, and that difference between the 80,000 and his current asking price of 150,000 may give him 70,000 of profit. You realize he will get a 70,000 profit for just sitting 8 years and waiting. So his property may really be worth much more than that, even though this price seems unbelievable to him, because he's overwhelmed by this profit picture. So he may be doing himself a disfavor and not knowing it. In future, when we sell, we will not have this problem, because from now on we will learn how to establish a fair market value that we learned previously for our property. And by the time we finish this course, we will have a more detailed method which will even factor the financial so-called financial effect in the analysis. But for now, we are the buyer, not the seller. So no matter how low the price is set on an investment offering, if we are a typical buyer, normally our first impulse is that confirm the property price is overpriced. Most buyers automatically assume that a seller puts a higher price on his property than he ever expected to obtain. Why? Because our common so-called common sense, that will leaves the seller more room for negotiation. We always have this mentality, and sometimes even obviously that the property price is already priced below the market value, we will still want to bargain with them. And sometimes we may just let the opportunity pass by. So we should be a little different type of buyer compared to those normal buyers in the market. We can analyze the investment and determine how much it is worth to us. So it should be compared with others that we are considering, other properties that we are considering. Maybe it is not overpriced compared with everything else on the market. And this means that we will have to be reasonable on our judgment. If you only buy at a bargain price, we may not be able to buy anything at all in the market. So this analysis help us, that we are going to discuss, help us to make sure that our judgment is always reasonable when it comes to a new property, a new investment opportunity. Let's get into the step-by-step analysis. This real estate investment evaluation analysis is called Gold Finance. As you can see from this slide, the Gold Finance is a trademark method. By end of this example, you will understand why it is called Gold Finance. It is a simplified form used to analyze investment properties in this course, which members can download it in the form of a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet from the webpage of this module. Gold Finance analysis can be used for any type of income-producing real estate. The numbers may vary for office buildings, shophouses, etc., but the same formula still applies. We can use this method to project monthly cash flow, monthly installment, and return on investment for a property by just filling 8 numbers only in those green color fields, green color cells that you can see from this spreadsheet. But don't worry about all the numbers. We will cover that one by one, step by step, using the apartment from Mr. Seller just now, the example, and we'll just go through step by step how the analysis works. If you find this spreadsheet too elaborative later on, we will show you another simplified and convenient, more mobile version of Gold Finance analysis, which is available separately for subscribed members. So we will just, for the time being, we just go through and using this spreadsheet for the example of the apartment from Mr. Seller. So let's look at the meaning of each individual input of Gold Finance analysis. Start from the top of the spreadsheet. The first input is the professional cost. This is the professional fees that we are going to pay for our acquisition when we buy a property, which include the legal fees for transfer of ownership and commission or brokerage fee for real estate agent. it is in a percentage of the property price. For example, normally our real estate agent will charge us 1% of the property price as his commission or professional fees. Here we assume the total legal and brokerage fees, for the example, to be 4.5% of property price. That is 1% of for the commission, agent commission, and 3.5% for legal. The legal fees here should include S&P agreement, loan agreement, stamp duties, and all other costs charged by our attorney or our conveyance lawyer. So this is the very first input. The second input, furnishing costs. This is the estimated cost required to repair, renovate, or furnish the property so that it will be up to the standard that it can produce the expected rental income. So let's say after we carry out due diligence and checking with our contractors, we find that the apartment of the Mr. Seller require us to cater to put one side to budget minimum of 10,000. 10,000 is required minimum to refurnish the apartment so that we can continue to rent at the expected rent. And this amount will then be our so-called our budget for that purpose after we purchase the property. So we will try to make all the renovation costs, all the furnishing within this budget so that it will stay within our expectation, our expected performance for this property. The next input, property price. This is the price that we are willing to pay to the seller, or we can sometimes use this to double check the asking price offer from the seller. So here we will use 150,000 to check if the asking price from Mr. Seller is whether is this a bargain or not. Then the next input that we got to key in this spreadsheet is a mortgage loan in percentage of property price. So this is the loan that we are able to obtain from bank as a percentage of property price. The common term for this figure is mortgage loan margin, and bankers will normally call it LTV, loan to value. In this case, let's say after we double check with several banks, we find out that most of the banks are willing to loan us up to 90% of the property price, since this is our very first investment property. So we just key 90% there. Okay, the next field that we see here, this is a non-green color. It's not green color, so it's not an input. It's just a computed numbers from the spreadsheet. The total cash capital required. So here it shows that the total cash capital required from us to invest in order to buy this property. This amount is the sum of down payment, which is the difference between the loan price and the property price, and also include professional costs, the 4.5% from legal and brokerage, and the furnishing costs, the 10,000 that we cater for the budget of renovation. Down payment is the difference between property price and the loan amount. So in this case, a 10% down payment or 15,000 is required. Since we double check with the bank, we can get a 90% loan. So the rest of the 10% should be come out from our pocket. And the professional cost, as mentioned earlier, is 4.5, which is equivalent to 6,750 here in this example. And the furnishing cost we just mentioned, 10,000. So the total cash required to buy the apartment from this Mr. Seller is 31,750 ringgit. So we just sum up these three numbers. So in this case, we assume bank offers to us a package of mortgage loan which will absorb the legal cost for finance. So in real analysis, if there's any legal cost for finance, we should increase the percentage number in the field of professional costs accordingly. So please note that this value is automatically calculated in the spreadsheet because that's why it's not highlighted in green. So we only need to fill up the green color cells. So let's move on to the next number, the next field in the spreadsheet, loan amount. This is the amount of mortgage loan we obtain from bank. It calculated automatically from the percent of loan that we key in previously. So 90% of 150,000 is 135,000. That it will be the loan amount we're going to loan from bank. So again, this amount is calculated by the spreadsheet after we input the mortgage loan margin. Then the next is another input. This is loan tenure. Loan tenure is the maximum number of years for us to repay our mortgage loan. Amount of mortgage repayment or monthly installment will later be calculated based on this number and also the interest rate that we get from the bank's package. The longer the tenure, the lower our monthly installment, but the higher total interest that we are going to pay. Here we assume that we are allowed for a maximum 30 years of loan tenure. So we will discuss in more details about how to choose the right financing packages for better leverage and maximum return in the next module. All this will be discussed in more detail in the next module. So today we'll just intro this method of analysis. So here input of 30 years, maximum loan tenure. Then the next one is the gross income or monthly rental income. So this is the gross monthly income the property can produce. Although Mr. Steller insists he never has a vacancy, so here we would like to be more cautious and allow say 9% of the gross income for vacancies, which is equivalent to almost 1 month vacant every year. So after this so-called 9% discount, we can expect the apartment to produce an average of 1,000 ringgit rental income every month, with the consideration of vacancy of 9%, which is equivalent to one month per year vacancy. Okay, the next one is operating expenses. The maintenance cost or operating expenses is the total cost required to maintain normal operation of the property so that it can continue to generate income. This shall include management fee and sinking fund for those apartment or condominium, and then fire insurance, property taxes, rent and acceptance fee, repairs, minor or major repairs, and other expenses that we can expect when we run the operations when we continue to rent out the property. So after getting all the necessary information from Mr. Seller in the example, the average monthly maintenance cost for the apartment is estimated here as 120 every month, with the assumption that no major repairs will be required for the first year. Because we already cater 10,000 ringgit to refurnish the apartment. Minor repair costs are normally borne by tenant, so which should be stated in our tenancy agreement. We will discuss more detail about procedures and things to take care when we rent out our property in module 10. The operating expenses exclude the financing cost or mortgage repayment, the installment. So here only those costs that require to run the operations. So here we got to go to a different field. Here, I think, okay, the next one, interest rate, sorry. This is another field, the last input field highlighted in green color, interest rate. Assuming the effective interest rate of our mortgage loan that we got from bank is here we assume 4.3 per annum, maybe 4.3 every year. By entering this interest rate of our loan into this field, the spreadsheet will then calculate the monthly installment. Computation of the monthly repayment schedule in the spreadsheet allows different interest rates up to the first 5 years of mortgage loan. This is quite useful, particularly only for this spreadsheet, is useful for us to monitor the performance of our investment from time to time if interest rate changes, especially when we want to decide if in future refinancing existing property is a better choice. We will come back to this point in the discussion of refinance in the next module again. So in the case of this Mr. Seller's apartment, we will only use the first year to evaluate the investment. So we will just input 4.3% for every year in the spreadsheet. And the monthly repayments schedule will look like this. Monthly installment is computed automatically. As you can see, we highlighted in red color in the column of monthly installment. And the schedule also shows principal and interest payments breakdown. And then the remaining principal balance and also total interest paid every month. So it's a quite detailed tables to show our so-called repayment scheme. In this case, now we know that our monthly installment for this apartment, if we buy it with the loan package offered by the bank, 90% loan, 4.3% interest with 30 years annual, the monthly installment will be 668.08 cents. And from this amount of monthly installment, 184 will go to principal repayment in the first month, while the remaining 483 goes to interest charges. It's very clear here, okay, the breakdown. Okay. Let's go back to the next numbers that we can get from the analysis. This is the output. Okay, the result of the analysis after we key in all the green color field. Monthly cash flow after deducting operating expenses and monthly installment from the gross income, it gives us a positive cash flow of 211 ringgit 92 cents every month for this example, for this case of the apartment from Mr. Seller. So this is the monthly cash flow that we can expect from the investment of this apartment from Mr. Seller. In other words, our annual cash income from the property will be about 2,543 ringgit. We just multiply the monthly cash flow times 12 months. So this gives us an idea how much the cash flow that we can expect from the investment if there's cash flow. In some cases, you will find that it may not generate any cash flow at all. So this is the field that we're going to look at for us to first justify whether is this an investment worth us to invest in or not. Does it produce cash flow or not? Okay, the next indicator, the next result from the analysis is cash on cash yield or cash return on investment. This cash on cash return or cash return on cash investment is the annual cash return in percentage of the total cash capital that we have invested. So dividing annual cash flow income of just now we calculated one whole year, about 2,500 something, by the total cash capital required, which we can see from the cash capital here is 31,750. So just divide these two numbers. It shows that this property will give us about 8% return, annual return on the investment of 31,750 cash. So compared to rental yield that we normally heard from the market, this cash on cash return or cash on cash yield provides us a clearer picture about the actual return on our investment, because it is based on the actual amount of cash that goes into our pocket every month. After deducting all expenses, which include financing costs like installment also. So this is a more accurate kind of property income, compared to the previous two methods that we discussed to evaluate the value of a property, because this income is the net income after we deduct all expenses, regardless of operating expenses or financial costs. So that's why when we analyze an investment property, we always use this cash on cash yield as a key indicator to measure the performance of the investment. In fact, in the case of Mr. Seller's apartment, in the example, the actual return should be much better than the 8% that we calculated previously, because the principal reduction is not included in this analysis. We have to highlight here. Each year we pay down our mortgage by reducing the principal of mortgage loan. Although we cannot spend it now, it is just like money that is silently built up. We can cash out this hidden money when we sell the property or refinance the mortgage. So this is one of the advantage to have this detailed monthly repayment schedule. We can double check what is the balance in principle that we have, that we have a guideline, how much profit we are able to pocket after we sell the property in future for a certain amount of selling price. Because from the selling price, we just have to pay off the balance principal that we owe to the bank. Then the rest will be our profit. We will discuss in detail again in the next module all this calculation. For the time being, we just proceed to the last result from the analysis. The final term in this spreadsheet, the return on investment. This is a term commonly used in investment analysis. Here in this spreadsheet, we refer it as a measure of how long we can take back all the money we have invested in an investment. It is an inverse of the cash-on-cash return. So for an investment with 8.01% cash-on-cash return from the example of Mr. Seller's apartment, it will take us around 12.5 years. We just have to use 1 divided by the 8%, then we can get about 12.5 years. So we need around 12 and a half years to take back all the cash that we have put in, the cash capital of 31,750. So this gives us a guideline of how long that we can take back the so-called our capital as a measure of return on investment. Here, come to this point, there's a more important question that always come to us when we want to buy a property. How much should we finance or borrow for the investment? That is the purpose of the chart that we see from this spreadsheet. The chart in this spreadsheet gives us a clearer answer to that question. This chart of cash-on-cash yield versus the percent of loan illustrate the change in cash-on-cash return when we borrow 10%, 50%, and 90% from bank. So this is an important indicator to show if an investment is worth financing or worth borrowing from bank. If you can get an uptrend pattern like in this figure, then congratulations, our property is not just worth investing because it's generating cash flow, but also worth financing. The meaning of worth financing simply means that the more we borrow, the higher our return from our cash capital. Look at the chart. You can only get less than 7% cash-on-cash return if you buy the apartment from Mr. Seller with 100% cash. If you buy this property without financing, meaning that we fork out more than 150,000 cash plus all the costs to buy it, we will not be able to build up equity in the principal reduction as well because we didn't borrow. On the other hand, if you take 50% loan, the return becomes slightly over 7% increase. And from the chart, the more we finance, the more we borrow, the higher the return we can see. So in this case, in order to maximize the return on investment, it will be advisable to go for the maximum loan that we can obtain. That is a 90% loan for the case of Mr. Seller's apartment. And that will give us an 8% return on our cash investment. So here maximum return we can expect. We have to use the leverage with the used finance in order to enjoy that 8%. And we will further discuss this aspect of creative financing in the next module again. So now you understand why this.
So in this case, in this case, we understand that for this type of property, the more you borrow money to invest, the better return you
Yes, the return.
So
is,
you call
the
that,
return is based on the cash capital. Yeah, it's not based on the property value. It's based on the cash capital that you actually fork out from your money, the cash. So now we understand why this exclusive method of investment analysis is called goal finance. It's used to analyze if an investment is worth borrowing, worth financing or not. It is exclusively shared with all the members in this course. And by following this method, an investor can decide whether his investment is a goal or no goal to finance and leverage for maximum return. One of the fastest ways to achieve financial freedom and investment goal is to accumulate as many as possible investment properties that are worth financing, which is showing this kind of pattern after our analysis. If properly managed, value of this kind of gold finance properties or properties worth financing, the value will appreciate in just a few years' time. And by that time, we will be able to realize a big sum of profit and move on to a larger investment. Or we can sell away some properties and then use the money to redeem the outstanding loans of other properties. By doing so, the increased amount of cash flow from the redemption of loan will eventually allow us to achieve financial freedom and retire early. This is exactly the way that I follow for years. I've been practicing in this way for years, and it has already helped me achieve early retirement before my 40. And all this become possible. All this become possible thanks to the power of leverage that we can enjoy from real estate investment. We will discuss further about how financing can change and can improve our real estate investment in the next module. Now, let me show you the simplified mobile version of Go Finance. Instead of using the spreadsheet, it looks like a lot of numbers. I will demonstrate how convenient it is using the same example with the mobile apps. So I changed.
Great, Dr. Ong, we have a question from Alex. Alex is asking, using Go Finance model, is there any property project in Johor which, in your opinion, is a good buy for retirement purpose?
In fact, there are many. Along the year, we have acquired quite a few. But for my personal concern, I'm quite reluctant to disclose the name of the particular properties. So I always encourage members and even my friends, my family, to go through and learn this kind of analytical skills, so that you will be able to enjoy, you will be able to see yourself what kind of properties are really worth investing. See clearer, because as we discussed in the previous slides, there are 8 variables that we can change. For example, different cases, you may have a different budget for furnishing costs, or for different property, they may have a different potential of rental income. So it's sometimes these kind of variables may so-called change the outcome of the analysis. So we need to practice again and again. As long as we follow this step-by-step analysis again and again, we will find that we will become more and more accurate to pinpoint, to spot those good investment, regardless it's in JB, KL, or even US, because the same formula.
Like even in the same project, let's say the same condominium, but different floor, different
furnishing,
floor size.
yes.
It also different furnishing. It all give different returns. And using this method, using the numbers, it tells you which one is the best to invest.
We can clearly see the difference even in the same building.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Hope this helps, Alex.
let's move on to the mobile apps.
Yeah.
Okay, these mobile apps are available for those subscribed members. We are able to add new property from the property listing on our left hand side here, as you can see. So I have already created one for Mr. Seller. Okay, we just key in here property price, the legal brokerage, furnishing costs as we discussed just now, loan, percent of loan, interest, loan tenure, monthly rental income, and monthly maintenance costs. These are the 8 inputs that we require for the calculation, for the analysis. So from these apps, you can see that it's already very simplified. We don't see a lot of numbers, a lot of words. We just concentrate to key in those few of the numbers that we require to analyze the property. Then you just click the button or calculate. Then we will see the chart. Immediately we will see the chart that shows us the property, whether is it worth financing, is it on the uptrend, when we borrow more, is the the return, is it increased? And then I think it's the size of the, at the bottom of the chart you can see that on the left hand side it summarizes the input of the property or the details of the property that we just key in. On the right hand side you will see the result, total cash capital, loan amount calculated, then it highlighted in green also if this property is generating monthly cash flow. So cash on cash yield also at the below of the monthly cash flow and the ROI, the return on investment. And you also summarize the monthly installment. So these are the numbers that are important to us to so-called to gauge whether the performance the performance of the investment is good or not at the first glance. So it provides a very clear picture to us for the first glance. And for those the monthly repayment schedule breakdown is you just press the button or details here, then you just show you. So which year you want to check the details of the repayment scheme. Then you are able to see the principal balance here also, the principal repay, which is the monthly installment. And sorry, principal repay is the amount of principal paid for the month, the interest, the end principal, the balance principal, and the total interest paid up to date. So this is a very concise and a convenient version of Go Finance. And on top of these apps, you can go back again. There's a back button here, or there's a property listing for you to change to another analysis. The back button is for us to go back and change other input. Later I'll show you. And on the right top corner, you can from here generate a new analysis, new to open like a new file for a new property analysis, or save the current one, all the data, or just look out. So let's go back and let's change and see how will it affect, for example, the rental income. Let's say if we don't furnish the apartment, we just want to save the 10,000, for example. It will give, these apps will give us a very quick check on the performance of the investment if we change any so-called data in the previous page. So from here, if we save the $10,000, if we set the 10,000 of furnishing costs for the Mr. Seller apartment, maybe the renter will just fetch us maybe 800 instead of 1,001. So from here, we just update the changes. We can see that the performance will drop, okay, and it's not worth financing. Although it still gives you a monthly cash flow because it shows green color, but it's just 11, almost $12 ringgit every month, and the cash on cash still is so little. Okay, in the extreme case, let's go back. If in the worst case scenario, for example, you're not able to get the 800, or for example, when the interest rate increase in the following years to maybe 4.5 only, okay, and the rest are still the same, then let's just see what will be the changes. You will see we will have a negative cash flow here, and here it will be highlighted in red to show us that it doesn't produce any cash flow for for this investment. So this demonstrates that how useful this app is for us to have a quick check even when we are not in front of our computer. We just use our mobile device, log into this Go Finance apps, and we will just have a quick check, key in all the data we are able to get from the agent or from the seller, and double check whether the performance is a good one or not a good one. And the best thing is we can always go back and change all the variables here. For example, increase in interest rate or drop in rental income, or even got any additional maintenance costs that we need, how will it affect. And one more thing is it also helps us to negotiate. For example, if we are able to negotiate the price reduced by another just maybe 1,000 to Mr. Seller to buy the property, and with the loan package the same, standby for the furnishing costs 10,000 the same, and if you are able to maintain the same tenant, continue to rent for us, then we will be able to see what will we affect our rental, our return on investment in this case. So with just a discount of 5,000 on the property price, we are able to get additional 2% more or sorry, in here is another 5.5% for 90% loan. We can just move to tap every increment of 10% of loan. How would the rental investment change? So in this case, if we still go for 90% loan, but we are able to get a discount of 5,000 from the Mr. Seller, we see that the return, the cash on cash yield from 8% become 8.5%. And the monthly cash flow, not much change, but we are still able to. Here, what we want to highlight here is this analysis and these apps provide us a very convenient tool for us to just change a variable and see how will it affect the performance of the investment. Whether is it worth financing or is it worth investing? Okay. If you have any question about the apps or this step-by-step analysis, you can always post questions. So now let's go back to the summary of this module. Make the right investment decision, which is all the investment dream. Okay, with this with this method that we discussed in just a few minutes, the steps that we have just followed will tell us everything we need to know about a specific property and help us make a sound, knowledgeable investment decision. Again, I repeat here, if you learn nothing else from this course, retain the information in this module. Perform the analysis discussed in this module, and use the spreadsheet or use the apps before making any purchase. You can forget about any rules of thumb that makes property analysis sounds like something that we can do in our head. Most of them are inaccurate, and many of them are meaningless. Most knowledgeable investors, large or small, experienced or beginners, rely on this type of system to know if a property meets their investment requirements. It also serves as a convenient way to analyze different ways of purchasing the same property, like I demonstrated just now. Bargaining, or change the loan package, or save the money of renovation. Then from the analysis, we are able to choose the best option, the best way of purchasing or to manage property for us. It gives us an easy way to compare several properties, even like Casey said, even in the same building, using the same formula on each of them. And without conducting such an analysis, we are actually just trying our luck when we're trying to make a sound investment decision. So that's all for the most important module. So if you have any question, or if you have anything that you don't understand about the content that we just discussed in this module, be it the two simple way to evaluate the value of a property, or the step-by-step financial analysis that include the finance, the computation, just post your question or your comment on the web page of this module. And again, you must perform this financial analysis on the property that you shortlist. Because just do the analysis, just key in the few numbers and try to learn it and see how it performs. It won't cost you any money, and it just costs you a few minutes on it. And the more we practice, the more we find ourselves being
Yeah.
clearer and more objective and come to judgment of a good or bad investment. So that's all for
Yeah, thank
this
you,
module.
thank you, Dr. Ong. Yeah, in fact, from my personal experience, I also find it is especially useful when we are comparing some properties that's situated together, and it really clear up the picture,
Yes.
when sometimes we are
Different
affected.
conditions.
Yeah, you are affected by, let's say, this property is fully is better furnished, the other one is more rundown, but actually probably the rundown one will give you higher return.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes numbers just tell. So if you do this
the
analysis,
fact.
yeah, the numbers will tell the fact, and we will be more objective in what is the offer we want to give to the seller.
Yes.
You have
Yeah.
you
More reasonable.
yeah, more reasonable price to pay for
More
that.
reasonable, even come to a negotiation or bargain with the seller. We know our ground, we have done our homework.
Yes. Thank you very much. So if there's no
Yeah,
more
thanks
questions,
for-
we will end this webinar right now, and we'll
Okay.
schedule the other training probably next week.
Yeah, the next module.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.